Okay, I am Emmanuel Ewhrawhra. I am an editor from the Tell Nigerians in Switzerland, and on my side is
Joy.
And today we are going to talk about aviation as an industry in general, and as a student is going to tell us more. As a law student, he's going to tell us more the legal implication of these subjects as applied in Europe and in Africa, and more to be focused, we're going to talk about West Africa. So please, can you tell us what's aviation? What this means? What does it mean? So when you say aviation, what does it mean?
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's a privilege. Now to your question, aviation actually means a lot. It goes beyond what many of us we experience day to day. I just buy a ticket that I want to fly to.
Okay, as a layman, for example, if you want to say, if I am thinking about transportation and then aviation, what are you going to say about this? How do you put me through?
Well, very simple. Aviation takes you from point A to B, through the skies. That is it. That is what aviation is really all about. Take you from one point to the other point.
I want you to tell us more about the industry, about the aviation industry.
Yes. I'm getting there now. That point A to B that you've been able to, transport yourself through. There is a lot of things that has happened on them,
okay,
which is what the aviation industry is all about. So, what do I mean? There is a legal structure. There's a legal framework that made it possible for that flight to have taken place from point A to point B. All you just did was to buy your ticket and travel. But there is an underlying policy that made it possible.
So tell me one of those policies.
Now, one of those policies, the very fundamental one, is called traffic rights. Because normally under the international legal system, there's something that is called sovereignty. That is authority, your rulership over your territory. In simple parlance, in legal parlance, we have our ways of describing it. For layman understanding, it just means that you have control over your territory,
okay,
to rule, to make laws, to make decisions.
Are you in line with what he's saying?
Yeah, sure.
Do you
over your
questions?
Not for now, no.
Okay. Do you get the concept of aviation and an industry?
Sure.
As an industry in the context, you get it. Okay. So you want to? Can you tell me more about this right you're talking about?
Yeah.
The right, we know that every right belongs to where it belongs. For example, Nigeria or Switzerland have their own commune or some kind of laws guiding them. I want to know, tell us about this contracting between two countries in the aviation industry. How does it take place?
Okay.
Who does this and how is the process?
Okay. If you just allow me give you a kind of a background information so that you can really understand.
Okay.
When we get into the complex.
Yeah,
okay, all right. I'm just trying to make sure that I explain it I break it down as simple as possible.
Okay.
So you don't start getting confused.
Okay.
When you start hearing certain terms. But basically, let's put the idea of sovereignty aside now. What I'm trying to explain to you is that traffic rights is your opportunity as an airliner to move from point A to point B. And that is how you sell your market, because you already have the right to move anyone who is interested in moving from point A to point B.
Okay.
And who grants you that right? It is the state that grants you the right. And how does the state even get this right? The state must have gotten the right from the other states, based on this idea of sovereignty, that I have control over my territory, so you can't do anything without my permission. That is why a state needs the other state's permission to carry out traffic activities, including aviation. So if I as state A have been able to contract with state B that fine, I want to fly into your country, then it gives me the opportunity, if you say yes, to grant my people, those actors in the aviation industry in my country, the license. All right, you can go to Geneva from Nigeria. You can go to the United States from Lagos Muritala. It's not the airliner that has the right. if the state doesn't have the right, it wouldn't have been possible.
Okay, good. Thank
You
you so
understand?
much. Now we get you. Do you have questions? Okay, no, now as a student, I want you to come down a little bit. As a student, I want you to tell us about the idea that you have for your thesis on this aviation as a subject, yeah?
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Now, there's a system that operates here in Europe. It's called the European Single Sky. Remember earlier on, I mentioned the idea of sovereignty, because there's no way you can discuss aviation without discussing sovereignty. It goes into the root of aviation. It is the background upon which we have traffic activities in the sky. Sovereignty is very important. So, in the European system, there is, like I said, something called the single sky. So
Single sky or open sky?
Single sky. It's
Okay.
called single sky. They also use the term open sky.
Okay.
Meaning there is no Swiss airspace, there is no German airspace, there is no French airspace.
It belongs to the European Union.
It all belongs to the European Union.
Okay, tell us now about what
I
you
don't-
know about the same system and what you know about Nigeria and West Africa or Africa.
Okay, so back in Nigeria, as a matter of fact, other parts of the world, because it's only Europe that has that kind of system for now, you still have the traditional system of sovereignty in place. My territory, you need my permission before you can fly into my country, and I also need your permission before I can fly into your country, vice versa.
Okay, good.
So
You
that
mentioned
system
something
still
before about, for example, a flight is coming from Lagos, landing in Zurich, and then take passengers from Zurich and take them to California, for example. That means that this airline has something to do both with the contract has something to do with both Switzerland, where Zurich gets the right to travel from a place to a point A to point B and travel to point C before coming back to your original point A.
Okay. Well, traffic rights are always negotiated amongst countries. As country A with country B. And the terms of the agreements is what will determine the operation of those flights.
Okay.
So, if I have the traffic rights to fly from Nigeria to Switzerland, there's something they call it under aviation law. It's called the third freedom.
Okay.
Third
Freedom means
freedom.
I can fly from Zurich, from Nigeria, Lagos to Zurich, and then to California.
No. It means I can simply fly from Lagos to Zurich, that's the third freedom, and then a fourth freedom, which gives me the opportunity
No,
to
one more
fly
time.
back from
I'm flying from Nigeria to Zurich, and then if I'm leaving Zurich, now the first freedom that I have is my flying from Nigeria to Zurich. And what about the second freedom? Is there a second freedom?
There is a second freedom.
And
What
what
I
is
just
this?
told you is the third freedom, because
No, the
I
third-
jumped straight to the third freedom.
No,
That is
I
what
want to
really
know.
matters.
I want to know about the second freedom.
There is something called, okay, let me break it down.
Okay.
Very fast, so you can get it. There's a first freedom. There's a second freedom.
The first freedom
There's a
means
third freedom.
I can fly from my
No,
country.
that's not
Okay.
it. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
I went straight to the third freedom.
No, tell me first about the first freedom.
The first freedom is what gives me the opportunity to actually fly.
From
over-
where? From
fly
my origin, from my original point.
From my original point over.
To fly over my original point is my first freedom.
It's
And
your
the
first
second freedom?
The second
is to-
freedom
okay.
is for you to be able to fly over from your territory to another territory, but not for traffic purposes. It could be for the purpose of, I want to fuel, or for an emergency, or for what have you. Just gives the opportunity to just land in that territory for certain purposes that are
Okay.
non-traffic, that is
Okay.
not for commercial purpose.
Okay.
The third freedom is what now gives you the opportunity to fly from your country to another country. That's why I jumped straight
Okay,
to the
okay,
third,
thank you
because
so much.
Generally, in
I want
aviation
to ask
law,
about
you
the
have
particular
seven
freedoms. For 7 freedoms. I want to ask about something. I'm flying from Nigeria to Switzerland, to Zurich. That means I've crossed a lot of countries. I've crossed some countries. Before I can land in Switzerland, I leave Lagos
And that is the first freedom, flying over other territories. You need that before you can really operate.
And this freedom, how do I get this? Is it the government will negotiate as for the airliners, or who does that?
Well, there is actually an international agreement with regards to that. That generally confers first freedom on every country participating in the aviation activities. Where the act of international bilateral negotiation kicks in is with respect third freedom moving forward. But with regards to the first and the second freedom, there is an international agreement that confers.
You just mentioned about that the airlines have 7 freedoms. Can you just
9 freedoms.
9 freedoms, okay.
9 freedoms.
And where do they play? In which place do I need them? Do I need this 4th to 9th freedom? What are these?
Well, it depends on your market interest, actually, as a state.
So, for
Remember,
example,
I mentioned that you negotiate those freedoms.
So what is the 4th freedom?
The 4th freedom now gives you the opportunity to fly from the country B. Let me use the instance of AB. Nigeria A, B is your point of destination. Then flying from your point of destination back to your point of departure. So the 3rd and 4th freedom are very necessary ingredients in every bilateral air service agreement.
And about the 5th freedom?
The 5th freedom. You did not even ask about
No, because now you have dived in the 4th. But tell me about the 4th again.
The 5th. The 4th is to return
to your point of departure. You mentioned that.
Then the 5th freedom is now the freedom that it's really scarce under aviation law. Because many states would want to protect market interests, except they don't have any market value in that other state. That is why they would usually grant the 5th freedom.
So how does it work?
And that is what confers you the right to move from your country to another country, then to another country, instead of back
to your original point.
So that's the 5th one.
And the 6th one?
Freedom. The 6th freedom is usually, let me give you a very good example, which is very, very common, is situations whereby I fly from a country B, that is another country, to a point of destination itself, point of departure, back to the real home country. Then from the home country, then proceed
Can you bring
to
it
another
into
country.
reality? For example, give me an example. I'm flying from Zurich to Cuba, and then from Cuba to...
Let me give a very, very good
very clear
example.
one.
Because there's an airline that really carries out that activity in these days because of their centralization on the global map. And that is Dubai. Emirates Airline in particular. Emirates Airline usually they will move from different countries in the world. Let's say Nigeria, for instance, to their country. Usually that airline operated from Dubai to Nigeria. So it picks passengers in Nigeria as a point B, because point A usually we use to refer to point of
original point.
Cabotage simply means a situation whereby an international airline operates within a local airspace from one point to another, which is not allowed. It's like saying that Lufthansa operating from Lagos to Kano for traffic purposes.
So tell me about the 9th.
The 9th freedom is what I just told you about. It's what happens typically under aviation law, which it's not about really you flying from your country as a foreign country into a country of destination and now committing cabotage. The 9th freedom is basically even starting cabotage right inside our country itself, which is not usually.
Thank you so much.
I have a question. You talked about, you said for flights to be able to leave its original point to another country, for example, it has to have a license or a freedom to land in that country. That one. So, is this applicable when it comes to emergency? Like, for example, when the flight needs to land just for safety?
I think you mentioned it before.
Yes, I mentioned
this is the
second freedom.
Second freedom. It gives you the opportunity to just to land for some certain emergency.
Non-traffic purposes. And emergency non-commercial can also fall under that. And as a matter of fact, all international flights under their schedules.
Yeah.
Passengers will not know,
Yeah.
but they have different points that has already been marked that they can land.
Thank you.
in
Do you
case
have
of
more questions,
emergencies.
please?
Yeah, so you're trying to say that for you to have an airline industry, you have to make sure that your country has a license, and you have to be able to know what freedom your country has in order to operate. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, you are almost there, but not really in a way. A little bit mixed up. You can have an airline industry. You can be an aviation activist,
Company or something.
company
Yeah,
or
okay.
something, without engaging in international services.
Okay.
So you just operate within your country, and you don't need the permission of
Thank
the
you. Do you have more questions? Okay,
No,
good. Thank you so much.
Sabotage. Sabotage simply means a situation whereby an airline or an international airline operates for commercial purposes, flight operations within a domestic country. Once it gets to its place of destination in Nigeria, and not engage in commercial activities again within Nigeria. It is just to operate internationally.
Good.
So
good,
once
good.
it gets to Lagos, for instance, is to go back and not to pick up passengers in Lagos and head to Kano.
Thank you. So
It's just for
Afolabi
local
just spoke now
operators.
on aviation and the aviation industry and the licenses you need if you have a company that is into transportation through air. And Joy Demba also has some few questions. She's also University of Geneva, European University of Geneva. She read international relations, so she's a graduate and is a master's student. And myself, Emmanuel, Ewhrawhra, from the 10 Nigerians. Thank you so much. Have a good day.